Do you remember the first time you were formally recognized as a leader? Not when you felt like one, but when someone actually gave you the title, the responsibility, and the pressure. Maybe it was your first team, or maybe even it was a battlefield, or a conference room, or a call center. Whatever the setting, do you remember what you told yourself? I do. I told myself I had to be great, inspiring, unshakable, maybe even heroic. And I was wrong. Leadership isn't about being the hero. It's about building other people into heroes. But that's not how most organizations operate. They don't teach that. They don't reward that. After more than 20 years coaching Fortune 500 executive leaders, I've seen the same pattern over and over. People trying to be heroic, grinding to deliver results while burning the candle at both ends. Sure, the bonus checks and promotions come, but at a huge cost. And you know what? That's not even great leadership. That's just managing chaos. So what do great leaders do that keeps them from destroying themselves and their teams? In this video, I'm going to break down the 3 things that separates high-performing leaders from the rest. 3 things that I've seen in the boardroom, to the front lines, and inside every high-stakes environment where execution matters. Let's dive in. Number 1, most leaders assume that if they communicate the strategy clearly, execution will follow. They'll identify a few major milestones and a few key resourcing needs and then launch. But that's not leadership. That's wishful thinking. Great leaders don't just outline dependencies. They map them and they secure them before anything moves forward. How do the best leaders do it? They tackle 4 things. I call it the Peter framework: people, time, energy, and resources. Let's walk through it. People. Do you have enough people to get it done? Are they the right people? This isn't about org charts. It's about capacity and capability. Are you going to need to develop talent before this can really work? Great leaders lock that down before they launch. Time. How long will this take to get to 80% execution? Not just finish on paper, but actual adoption. What time will be needed to collect feedback and make iterations? Most timelines are built for launch dates and status reports, not for actual results and impact. Great leaders factor this into their thinking. Energy. This is the big one people ignore. What's the emotional fuel behind the work? Are people energized? Or are they still recovering from the last big priority they were given? If energy is low, their effort will stall, no matter how solid the plan looks. Great leaders recognize that motivation matters. And finally, the R in Peter: resources, tools, budget, space, and especially data. Are they all available? Are they being shared with other teams? What happens if they're pulled mid-flight? If you don't plan for that, you're planning for failure. Great leaders don't assume the resources will be available simply because they expect it. You see, great leaders don't just build a strategy. They factor the dependencies into their strategy. They maximize what they have and recognize what they don't before they give anyone a strategy to execute. Okay, number 2, disruption is no longer a surprise. It's the environment. So the real question is, are you in charge of the disruption, or is it in charge of you? Most leaders react to disruption. They scramble, they adjust, they try to optimize while launching new innovations, and they get stretched too thin. Great leaders pick a lane for their team to follow. They either minimize disruption by eliminating inefficiencies and reinforcing best practices, or create disruption by intentionally shaking things up and leading bold transformation. They don't do both at the same time. Trying to do that is a recipe for burnout and chaos. For example, let's look at Alan Mulally at Ford. He didn't try to reinvent the auto industry. He focused on alignment, simplicity, and execution. His One Ford plan turned a sinking ship around by eliminating waste and dysfunction. And on the other hand, you can look at Reed Hastings at Netflix. He went the other direction. He disrupted his own business, literally betting on streaming before the rest of the world caught up. He embraced the risks and chaos and it paid off big. Both succeeded because they chose their disruption. So here's the rule. If you're minimizing disruption, be ruthless about inefficiency, cut waste, eliminate confusion. And if you're creating disruption, be relentless about innovation. Accept the mess, but don't pretend you're optimizing at the same time. Pick your lane and then master it. Number 3, let's talk about the real killer of execution: stress. Stress hijacks decision-making. It pushes leaders into reactive, defensive, and impulsive choices. And the worst part, we've normalized it. We wear stress like it's a badge of honor. But neuroscience tells us under stress, we lose access to strategic thinking. The prefrontal cortex literally shuts down. This is what I call the ego fear loop. Here's how it works. Our core human drives get distorted by our environment. The drive for competence becomes a need for success. The drive for relatedness becomes a need for significance. And the drive for autonomy becomes a need for control. And when those needs feel threatened, fear kicks in hard. The fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of risk, all pop up. And then that creates the loop. Our fears push us toward the quote only thing that will calm us down, which only generates more fear. And if we don't break it, it will show up in how we lead, how we decide, how we execute. So how do great leaders stay out of it? They shift their mindset. They go from focusing on success to focusing on confidence. Am I doing my best? Instead of focusing on significance and getting that recognition, they focus on acceptance. Do I accept myself just as I am? And instead of focusing on control, they focus on trust. And they ask themselves, do I trust the journey, even if I don't control the outcome? You've got to get to a neutral place so that you're making great decisions. Mary Barra at GM lived this. When she stepped in as CEO, GM was in crisis, recalls, lawsuits, and a really damaged brand. She didn't go defensive. She didn't blame past leadership. She just accepted full responsibility. She made the culture shift from fear to transparency. And then she rebuilt trust from the inside out. That's what conquering the ego fear loop looks like in real time. You do your best, you accept yourself, warts and all, and you trust the journey. You just do what you know is the right thing to do and trust the best possible outcome will happen. So when you put all 3 of these things together, you suddenly see a very different definition of what great leadership looks like. You'll see that great leaders map dependencies before executing. They don't scramble in the middle of it because they understand the people, time, energy, and resources are essential to making great decisions. Number 2, they master disruption by choosing one path. Either minimize disruption or create it, but don't try to do both at the same time. Get your team focused on what they're supposed to be doing and then master that path. And finally, conquer the ego fear loop within you. Make decisions from a place of confidence, acceptance, and trust, not fear. And then watch your team do the same. Because in the end, leaders don't rise to the level of their ambition. They fall to the level of their execution. And if you want to build a team that thrives, even in the chaos, these 3 things aren't optional. They're mandatory. If this hits home, I've got something more for you. You can check out a free preview of my masterclass on strategic execution. It'll show you how to cut through the noise, get to the real reasons execution breaks down, and ultimately, what to do about it. I'll walk you through a clear, proven framework that actually works. These are genuine best practices and strategies that will stop the grind and get your team thriving. Find the link in the notes section and take a moment now to invest in yourself. Holo mua. Onward and upward.